death of so many Kshatriya on the battlefield would lead to the mixing of superior women with inferior men, and on those grounds he objected to fighting. In any case, the entire Vedic social system is based on distinguishing between pity and sin, and Sri Uddhava is encouraging the Lord to explain more elaborately his statement that one should transcend both piety and sin. Text 3. Translation. Without seeing the difference between piety and sin, how can one understand your own instructions in the form of Vedic literature, which order one to act piously and forbid one to act sinfully? Furthermore, without such authorized Vedic literature, which ultimately award liberation, how can human being achieve the perfection of life? Purport. If one does not accept the necessity of performing pious activities and avoiding sinful activities, it becomes very difficult to understand authorized religious scriptures. And without such scriptures, how can human being attain salvation? This is the essence of Sri Uddhava's question. Text 4. Translation. My dear Lord, in order to understand those things beyond direct experience, such as spiritual liberation or attainment of heaven and other material enjoyment beyond our present capacity, and in general, to understand the means and end of all things, the forefathers, demigods, and human beings must consult the Vedic literatures, which are your own laws, for these constitute the highest evidence and revelations. Purport. One might argue that while human beings are certainly prone to ignorance, the elevated forefathers and demigods are considered to be all-knowing within universal affairs. If such superior beings would communicate with the earth, then everyone could bypass Vedic knowledge in achieving his personal desire. This concept is denied here by the words Vedas Chaksusa. Even the demigods and forefathers have at best an ambiguous conception of supreme liberation. And even in material affairs, they are subject to personal frustration. Although the demigods are all powerful in awarding material benedictions to inferior species such as human beings, they are sometimes thwarted in their personal program of sense gratification. A rich businessman, for example, may have no difficulty paying the insignificant salary of one of his innumerable workers, but the same wealthy man may be completely frustrated in his dealing with his own family and friends, and may also be defeated in his attempts to expand his fortune by further investment. Although a rich man appears to be all powerful to his subordinate workers, he must personally struggle to fulfill his personal desires. Similarly, the demigods and forefathers encounter many difficulties in maintaining and expanding their celestial standard of living. They must therefore constantly take shelter of superior Vedic knowledge. Even in the administration of cosmic affairs, they strictly follow the guidelines of the Vedas, which are the laws of God. If such fabulous entities as demigods must take shelter of the Vedas, we can just imagine the position of human beings who are frustrated at virtually every step of their lives. Every human being should accept Vedic knowledge as the highest evidence in material and spiritual affairs. Uddhava point out to the Lord that if one accepts the authority of Vedic knowledge, it is seemingly impossible to reject the concept of material piety and sin. Thus, Uddhava persists in examining the Lord's controversial statement at the end of the last chapter. Text 5. My dear Lord, the distinction observed between piety and sin comes from your own Vedic knowledge and does not arise by itself. If the same Vedic literature subsequently nullifies such distinctions between piety and sin, there will certainly be confusion. But in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, 15th sloka, Lord Krishna states, Vedescha sarver ahameva vedya. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta and I know the Vedas as it is. Vedic knowledge emanates from the breathing of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, whatever Lord Krishna speaks is Veda, or perfect knowledge. The Vedic literature are full of descriptions of piety and sin. But Lord Krishna's statement that one should transcend piety and sin is also to be understood as Vedic knowledge. Sri Uddhava has understood this point and therefore requests Lord Krishna to clear up an apparent contradiction. Ultimately, the material world gives the living entities a chance to satisfy their perverted desires and at the same time gradually achieve the liberation of going back home, back to Godhead. Thus, material piety must be considered a means and never an absolute end. Since the material world itself is not absolute, being temporary and limited. The personality of Godhead is himself the reservoir of all virtues and goodness. Those persons and activities that pleases the Lord are to be considered virtuous, and those that displeases him are to be considered sinful. There, there cannot be any other permanent definition of these terms. If one becomes a mundane moralist, forgetting the Supreme Lord, one's position is certainly imperfect, and one will not achieve the ultimate goal of piety, going back home, back to Godhead. On the other hand, there is great fear among moralists that if the distinction between piety and sin is minimized, people will commit many atrocities in the name of God. In the modern world, there is no clear understanding. There is no clear understanding of spiritual authority. And moral man considers any appeal to transcend morality to be an invitation to fanaticism, anarchy, violence, and corruption. Thus, they regard material moral principles.
Next sloka.
Next sloka, text 6. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Uddhava, because I desire that human beings may achieve perfection, I have presented three paths of advancements: the path of knowledge, the path of work, and the path of devotion. Besides these three, there is absolutely no other means of elevation. Ultimately, the goal of philosophical speculation, pious regulated work, and devotional service is the same: Krishna consciousness, as stated by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita 4.11. Ye tha ma prapadante sansthe bhajamaham mam vartamanu vartante manusyah path sarvasa. All of them, as they surrender unto me, I reward accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. Although all authorized process of human perfection ultimately lead to Krishna consciousness or love of God, various performers have specific propensities and qualifications and thus gravitate to different methods of self-realization. Lord Krishna here describes the three authorized processes together in order to emphasize that the ultimate goal is one. At the same time, philosophical speculation and regulated pious work can never be considered equal to pure love of Godhead, as the Lord has elaborately clarified in the previous chapter. The word Traya or three indicate that despite their ultimate oneness of purpose, the three paths display diversity in progress and achievement. One cannot achieve the same result by mere speculation or piety that one achieves by directly surrendering to the personality of God, depending completely on His mercy and friendship. The word karma here indicates work dedicated to the personality of Godhead, as described in Bhagavad Gita 3rd chapter 9th sloka. यज्ञार्थात् कर्मणो अन्यत्र लोको अयं कर्म बन्धना तदर्थ कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्त संगः समाचर work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will remain unattached and free from bondage. In the process of jnana, one seeks impersonal liberation by merging into the glaring effulgence of the personality of Godhead. Such liberation is considered hellish by the devotees, because by merging, one loses all awareness of the supreme blissful features of the Lord as Bhagwan, the Supreme Person. The performers of the karma of regulated birth seek the three aspects of human progress other than liberation, namely religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification. The fruitive workers think that by exchanging each of their innumerable material desires, they will gradually come out of the dark tunnel of material existence into the clear light of spiritual liberation. This process is very dangerous and uncertain because not only is there virtually no limit to material desires, but even a slight flaw in the process of regulated work constitutes sin and throw one off the path of progressive life. The devotees directly aim for love of Godhead and are therefore most pleasing to the Supreme Lord. In any case, all three divisions of Vedic elevation depend completely on the mercy of the Lord Krishna. One cannot progress along any one of these paths without the blessings of the Lord. Other Vedic processes such as austerity, charity, and so forth are included within the three primary divisions described here. Text 7. Translation. Among these three paths, Gyan Yoga, the path of philosophical speculation, is recommended for those who are disgusted with material life and thus detached from ordinary fruitive activities. Those who are not disgusted with material life, having many desires yet to fulfill, should seek perfection through the path of Karma Yoga. Purport. In this verse, the Lord reveals the different propensities that lead human being to adopt different process of perfection. Those who are frustrated in the ordinary material life of society, friendship and love, and who understand that promotion to heaven simply brings further domestic miseries, take directly to the path of knowledge. Through authorized philosophical discrimination, they transcend the bonds of material existence. Those who are still desire of enjoying material society, friendship and love, and who are excited by the prospect of going with their relatives to the material heavenly planets, cannot take directly to the path of rigorous philosophical advancement, which require great austerity. Such persons are advised to remain in family life and offer the fruits of their work to the Supreme. In this way, they also can become perfect and gradually learn detachment from material life. Text 8. If somehow or other, by good fortune, one develops faith in hearing and chanting my glories, such a person being neither very disgusted with nor attached to material life, should achieve perfection through the path of loving devotion to me. If somehow or other one gets the association of pure devotees of the Lord and hears from them the transcendental message of Lord Krishna, then one has the chance to become a devotee of the Lord. As mentioned in the previous verse, those who become disgusted with material life take to impersonal philosophical speculation and rigorously try to stamp out any trace of personal existence. Those who are still attached to material sense gratification try to purify themselves by offering the fruits of their ordinary activities to the Supreme. A first-class candidate for pure devotional service, on the other hand, is neither completely disgusted with nor attached to material life. He does not desire to pursue ordinary material existence any further. because it cannot award real happiness. Nevertheless, a candidate for devotional service does not give up all hope for perfecting personal experience. A person who avoids the two extremes of material attachments and impersonal reactions to material attachments, and who somehow or other gets the association of pure devotees, faithfully hearing their message, is a good candidate for going back home, back to Godhead, as described here by the Lord. Text 9. Translation. As long as one is not satiated by fruitive activity and has not awakened his taste for devotional service by Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunction. Purport. Unless one has developed firm faith in Lord Krishna by association with pure devotees and is thus engaged full time in the devotional service of the Lord, one should not neglect ordinary Vedic principles and duties, as stated by the Lord Himself. Shruti Smriti Mamevagya Yaste Ulanghya Vartate Agya Chedi Mam Dvese Mad Bhakto Pina Vaisnava. The Shruti and Smriti literature are to be understood as my injunction, and one who violates such codes is to be understood as violating my will and thus opposing me. Although such a person may claim to be my devotee, he is not actually a Vaishnava. The Lord here states that if one has not developed firm faith in the process of chanting and hearing, one must comply with the ordinary injunction of the Vedic literature. There are many symptoms by which one can recognize an advanced devotee of the Lord. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, 7 sloka is stated, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Jnanastustu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahetukam. One who is actually engaged in advanced devotional service immediately develops both clear knowledge of Krishna consciousness and detachment from non-devotional activities. One who is not situated on this platform must comply with the ordinary injunction of Vedic literature or risk becoming inimical to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On the other hand, one who has developed great faith in the devotional service of Lord Krishna does not hesitate to do anything that will further the mission of the Lord. As stated in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter, 41 sloka, Devrasi bhutaptrinanam pitranam nakim karo nayam vrincha rajan sarvatmana yaha saranam saranyam gato mukundam parihat kartam. Anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation, giving up all kind of obligation, and has taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigod, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. Sri Rajiv Goswami points out in this regard that when a person fully surrenders to Lord Krishna, he takes shelter of Lord's promise to liquidate all other responsibilities and debts of the surrendered soul. The devotee thus becomes fearless by meditating on the Lord's promise of protection. Those, however, who are materially attached are frightened by the prospect of full surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thereby revealing their inimical mentality towards the Lord. Text 10. Translation. My dear Uddhava, a person who is situated in his prescribed duty, properly worshipping my Vedic sacrifices, but not desiring the fruitive results of such worship, will not go to the heavenly planet. Similarly, by not performing forbidden activities, he will not go to the hell. Purport. The perfection of Karma Yoga is described here. One who does not desire fruitive rewards for his religious activities does not waste time going to heavenly planets for celestial sense gratification. Similarly, one who does not neglect his prescribed duty or perform forbidden activities will not be bothered by going to hell for punishment. Thus, avoiding material rewards and punishments, such a desireless person can be promoted to the platform of pure devotional service to the Lord Krishna. Text 11. One who is situated, translation, one who is situated in his prescribed duty, free from sinful activities and clean of material contamination in this very life obtains transcendental knowledge or by fortune devotional service unto me. Perfect. Asmin Loke indicates one's present duration of life. Before the death of one's present body, one can obtain transcendental knowledge or by great fortune, pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord. The word Yadrachya indicates that if one somehow or other gets the association of pure devotees and hears from them faithfully, one can achieve Krishna consciousness, the highest perfection of life. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, through transcendental knowledge one obtains liberation, whereas through pure devotional service one can achieve love of Godhead, in which liberation is automatically included. Both results are certainly superior to ordinary fruitive activities, by which one tries to enjoy much the same thing that animals do. If one's devotional service is mixed with a tendency towards fruitive activities or mental speculation, then one may achieve the neutral stage of love of Godhead. Whereas those who are inclined to serve only Lord Krishna advance to the higher stage of love of Godhead in servitude, friendship, parental love, and conjugal relationship. Text 12. Translation. The residents of both heavens and hell desire human birth on the earth planet because human life facilitates the achievement of transcendental knowledge and love of Godhead, whereas neither heavenly nor hellish bodies efficiently provide such opportunities. Sri Rajiv Goswami points out that in material heaven, one becomes absorbed in extraordinary sense gratification, and in hell, one is absorbed in suffering. In both cases, there is little impetus to acquire transcendental knowledge or pure love of Godhead. Excessive suffering or excessive enjoyment are thus impediments to spiritual advancement. Text 13. Translation. A human being whose voice should never desire promotion to heavenly planets or residence in hell. Indeed, a human being should also never desire permanent residence on the earth, for by such absorption in the material body, one becomes foolishly negligent of one's actual self-interest. One who has achieved human life on the earth has an excellent opportunity to attain spiritual liberation through Krishna consciousness or devotional service to the Lord. Thus, one should not desire promotion to heaven or risk residence in hell, where excessive enjoyment or punishment deviates one's mind from self-realization. On the other hand, one should not think the earth is so nice, I can stay here forever. One should develop through detachment from all aspects and categories of material existence and go back home, back to Godhead, where life is eternal and full of bliss and knowledge. Lord Krishna now begins to develop his conclusive proof that actual human progress lies beyond material piety and sin. The Lord first clarified that there are basically three matters of human elevation, namely Jnana, Karma, and Bhakti, and that the goal is transcendental knowledge and ultimately love of Godhead. Now the Lord explains that promotion to heavenly planets, the final goal of piety, as well as residence in hell, the result of sinful activities, are both useless in fulfilling the actual purpose of life. Neither material piety nor sin establish the eternal living entity in his constitutional position. Therefore, something more is required to achieve the actual perfection of life. Text 14. Translation. A wise person, knowing that although the material body is subject to death, it can still award the perfection of one's life, should not foolishly neglect to take advantage of this opportunity before death arrives. Text 15. Without attachments, a bird gives up the tree in which his nest was constructed. When that tree is cut down by cruel men who were like death personified, and thus the bird achieves happiness in another place. Purpose. Here the example is given of detachment from bodily concept of life. The living entities resides within the body just as a bird dwells within a tree. When thoughtless man cut down the tree, the bird, without lamenting the loss of his previous nest, does not hesitate to establish its residence in another place. Text 16. Translation. Knowing that one's duration of life is being similarly cut down by the passing of days and nights, one should be shaken by fear. In this way, giving up all material attachments and desire, one understands the Supreme Lord and achieve perfect peace. Purpose. An intelligent devotee knows that the passing days and nights are
संसार दामन खत्म होकर इधर आ जाते हैं.
right, are exhausting one's duration of life, and he therefore gives up his futile attachments to material sense objects. Instead, he strives to achieve permanent benefits in life. Just as the detached bird immediately gives up his nest and goes to another tree, similarly a devotee knows that there is no permanent opportunity for residence within the material world. Instead, he dedicates his working energy to achieving eternal residence in the kingdom of God. Transcending the modes of material nature, by attaining Krishna's own spiritual nature, the devotee at last obtains perfect peace. Text 17. Translation. The human body, which can award all benefits in life, is automatically obtained by the law of nature. Although it is a very rare achievement, this human body can be compared to a perfectly constructed boat having the spiritual master as the captain and the instruction of his personality of Godhead as favorable winds, impelling it on its course. Considering all these advantages, a human being who does not utilize his human life to cross the ocean of material existence must be considered the killer of his own soul. The human body, which is obtained after passing through many inferior forms, is created in such a way that it can award the highest perfection of life. A human being is supposed to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the bona fide spiritual master is the appropriate guide for such service. The causeless mercy of Lord Krishna is compared to a favorable wind that helps the boat of the body to ply smoothly on the course back home, back to Godhead. Lord Krishna gives his personal instruction in Vedic literature, speaks through the bona fide spiritual master, and encourages, warns, and protects his sincere devotee from within the devotee's heart. Such merciful guidance of the Lord moves a sincere soul quickly on the path of back to Godhead. But who cannot understand that a human body is a suitable boat for crossing the ocean of material existence will see no need to accept a captain in the form of the spiritual master and will not at all appreciate the favorable winds of the Lord's mercy.
Read. Oh yeah.
Ready? Continue. He has no chance of achieving next sloka. Text 18. Translation. Is madam? Translation only. Okay. A transcendentalist, having become disgusted and hopeless in all endeavors for material happiness, completely controls the senses and develops detachment. By spiritual practice, he should then fix the mind on a spiritual platform without deviation. Text 19. Whenever the mind being concentrated on a spiritual platform is suddenly deviated from its spiritual position, one should carefully bring it under the control of the self
Ibo,
by the following the prescribed means.
Ibo, na.
Text 20. Text 20. One should never lose sight of the actual goal of mental activities, but rather conquering the life air and senses and utilizing intelligence is strengthened by the mode of goodness. One should bring the mind under the control of the self. Text 21. As expert horsemen desiring to tame a headstrong horse, first lets the horse have his way for a moment and then, pulling the reins, gradually places the horse on the desired path. Similarly, the supreme yoga process is that by which one carefully observes the movement and desires of the mind and gradually brings them under full control. Text 22. Until one's mind is fixed in spiritual satisfaction, one should analytically study the temporary nature of all material objects, whether cosmic, earthly, or atomic. One should constantly observe the process of creation through the natural progressive function and the process of annihilation through the regressive function. Text 23. When a person is disgusted with the temporary illusionary nature of this world and is thus detached from it, his mind, guided by the instruction of his spiritual master, considers again and again the nature of this world and eventually gives up the false identification with matter. Text 24. Through the various disciplinary regulations and the purificatory procedures of yoga system, through logic and spiritual education, or through worship and adoration of me, one should constantly engage his mind in remembering the personality of Godhead. The goal of yoga, no other means should be employed for this purpose. Text 25. If because of momentary inattention a yogi accidentally commits an abominable activity, then by the very practice of yoga he should burn to ashes the sinful reaction without at any time employing any other procedure. Text 26. It is firmly declared that a steady adherence of transcendentalists to their respective spiritual position constitutes real piety and that sin occurs when a transcendentalist neglects his prescribed duty. Only one who adopts this standard of piety and sin, sincerely desiring to give up all past association with sense gratification, is able to subdue materialistic activities which are by nature impure. 27-28. Having awakened faith in the narration of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. Next, 29. When an intelligent person engages constantly in worshipping me through loving devotional service, as described by me, his heart becomes firmly situated in me. Thus all material desire within the heart are destroyed. Text 30. The knot in the heart is pierced, all misgivings are cut to pieces, and the chain of rooted action is terminated when I am seen as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 31. Therefore, for a devotee engaged in my loving service, with mind fixed on me, the cultivation of knowledge and renunciation is generally not the means of achieving the highest perfection within the world. Text 22 and 23. 32 33. Everything that can be achieved by fruitive activities, penance, knowledge, detachment, mystic yoga, charity, religious duties, and all other means of perfecting life is easily achieved by my devotee through loving service unto me. If somehow or other my devotee desire promotion to heaven, liberation, or residence in my abode, he easily achieves such benedictions. Text 34. Because my devotees possess saintly behavior and deep intelligence, they completely dedicate themselves to me and do not desire anything besides me. Indeed, even if I offer them liberation from birth and death, they do not accept it. Text 35. It is said that complete detachment is the highest stage of freedom. Therefore, one who has no personal desire and does not pursue personal rewards can achieve loving devotional service unto me. Text 36. Material piety and sin, which arise from good and evil of this world, cannot exist within my unalloyed devotees, who, being free from material hankering, maintain steady spiritual consciousness in all circumstances. Indeed, such devotees have achieved me, the Supreme Lord, who am beyond anything that can be conceived by material intelligence. Text 37. Translation. Person who seriously follow these methods of achieving me, which I have personally taught, attain freedom from illusion, and upon reaching my personal abode may perfectly understand the absolute truth. Thus ends the purpose of the humble service of the disciple, Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The 11th canto, 20th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Pure Devotional Service, Surpass, Knowledge and Detachment. Next chapter, class. Chapter 21, Lord Krishna's explanation of the Vedic path. Text 1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who give up these methods for achieving me, which consist of devotional service, analytical philosophy, and regulated execution of prescribed duty, and instead, being moved by material senses, cultivate insignificant sense gratification, certainly undergo the continual cycle of material existence. Text 2. Steadiness in one's own position is declared to be actual piety, whereas deviation from one's position is considered impiety. In this way, the two are definitely ascertained. Text 3. O sinless Udhava, in order to understand what is proper in life, one must elevate a given object within its particular category. One must evaluate a given object within its particular category. Thus, in analyzing religious principles, one must consider purity and impurity. Similarly, in one's ordinary dealing, one must distinguish between good and bad. And to ensure one's physical survival, one must recognize that which is auspicious and inauspicious.
क्लास में दे रहे हैं
Text 4. I have revealed this way of life for those bearing the burden of mundane religious principles. Text 5. Earth, water, fire, air, and ether are the 5 basic elements that constitute the bodies of all conditioned soul, from Lord Brahma himself down to the non-moving creator. These elements all emanate from the one personality of Godhead. Text 6. My dear Udhava, although all material bodies are composed of same five elements and are thus equal, the Vedic literature conceives of different names and forms in relation to such bodies so that the living entities may achieve their goal of life. Text 7. O saintly Udhava, in order to restrict materialistic activities, I have established that which is proper and improper among all material things, including time, space, and all physical objects. Text 8. Among places, those bereft of the spotted antelope, those devoid of devotion to the Brahmanas, those possessing spotted antepodes but bereft of respectable man. Provinces like Kikata and places where cleanliness and purificatory rites are neglected, where meat eaters are prominent, or where the earth is barren, are all considered to be contaminated land. Text 9. A specific time is considered pure when it is appropriate, either by its own nature or through achievement of suitable paraphernalia for the performance of one's prescribed duty. That time which impedes the performance of one's duty is considered impure. Text 10. An object's purity or impurity is established by application of another object, by words, by rituals, by the effects of time, or according to relative magnitude. Text 11. Impure things may or may not impose sinful reactions upon a person, depending on the person's strength and or weakness, intelligence, wealth, location, and physical condition. Text 1. Various objects such as grain, wooden utensils, things made of bone, thread, liquid, objects derived from fire, skins, and earthly objects are all purified by time, by the wind, by fire, by earth, and by water, either separately or in combination. Text 13. A particular purifying agent is considered appropriate when its application removes the bad odor or dirty covering of some contaminated object and makes it resume its original nature. Text 14. The self can be cleaned by bathing, charity, austerity, age, personal strength, purificatory rituals, prescribed duties, and above all, by remembrance of me. The Brahmana and other twice-born man should be duly purified before performing their specific activities. Text 15. A mantra is purified when chanted with proper knowledge, and one's work is purified when offered to me. Thus, by purification of the place, time, substance, doer, mantra, and worker, one becomes religious. And by negligence of these 6 items, one is considered irreligious. Sometimes piety becomes sin, and sometimes what is ordinarily sin becomes piety. On the strength of Vedic injunction, such special rules in effect eradicate the clear distinction between piety and sin. Text 17. The same activities that would degrade an elevated person do not cause fall down for those who are already fallen. Indeed, one who is lying on the ground cannot possibly fall further. The material association that is dictated by one's own nature is considered a good quality. By refraining from a particular sinful or materialistic activity, one becomes free from its bondage. Such renunciation is the basis of religion and of peaceful life for human beings and drives away all suffering, illusion, and fear. Text 19. One who accepts material sense object as desirable certainly becomes attached to them, From such attachments, lust arises, and this lust creates quarrel among men. Text 20. From quarrel arises intolerable anger, followed by the darkness of ignorance. This ignorance quickly overtakes a man's broad intelligence. Text 21. O saintly Uddhava, a person bereft of real intelligence is considered to have lost everything. Deviated from the actual purpose of his life, he becomes dull just like a dead person. Text 22. Because of absorption in sense gratification, one cannot recognize himself or others. Living uselessly in ignorance like a tree, one is merely breathing just like a bellows. Text 23. Those statements of scriptures promising fruitive rewards do not prescribe the ultimate good for man, but are merely enticements for executing beneficial religious duties, like promise of candy spoken to induce a child to take beneficial medicine. Text 24. Simply by material birth, human beings become attached within their minds to personal sense gratification, long duration of life, sense activities, bodily strength, sexual potency, and friends and family. Their minds are thus absorbed in that which defeats their actual self-interest. Text 25. Those ignorant of their real self-interest are wandering on the path of material existence, gradually heading towards darkness. Why would the Vedas further encourage them in the sense gratification if they, although foolish, submissively pay heed to Vedic injunction? Text 26. Person with perverted intelligence do not understand this actual purpose of Vedic knowledge and instead propagate as the highest Vedic truth the flowery statement of the Vedas that promise material rewards. Those in actual knowledge of the Vedas never speak in that way. Text 27. So should I put a mark? Did you visit to the Yes, Maharaj. I'm doing God Aarti, Maharaj. Daily. The Bhoga offering God Aarti. 6 to 8 p.m.
Thank you. बिस्मिल्लाह।
बैंगलोर में क्या नहीं होएगा ये होगा।
देखते हैं। छः बज रहा है शाम का।
नाम में इतनी शक्ति है हे प्रभु